Okay, you beautiful friends, welcome back to the Bag of This in My Truck. And no, Sonic fans, I did not forget about y'all. I have been trying to find something that explains any of the changes made to the story that maybe Sonic X Shadow Generations might have actually done. But I don't feel like there's a video out there that actually explains the story that's changed, if any, because I still don't even know. But I've decided to now shift focus into the Archie comic book series. Now, I'm also having trouble with finding videos that explain the comic series from Archie from beginning to end. So, what I did find though was this video here. It's about a 14-minute long video, which means this entire video here is probably going to be about 30 to 35, maybe even 40. I don't know. But this one was entitled The Worst Archie Sonic Issue, or something along that lines. It was the worst story for Archie or something like that. So I figured, you know what? I can't find videos, and I'm not doing an 8-hour retrospective on, because I did find that. I did find an 8-hour retrospective on the Archie comic series, but I'm not going to do all that. So, what I can do though is go and do videos that are explaining some of the stories and some of the beats from Sonic's Archie series. So, hopefully we can get into this and these will all be good. I think I found a creator who might be able to do this. I did watch, like, you know, some of the beginning of it, and it seems like he's doing a pretty good job. So I'm gonna go with this. We're gonna check it out as per usual. Links are down below. Check out the original video without all my commentary, please, and then come back over here. And then all the pauses and stuff like that, you don't have to sit here and be like, oh, I'm trying to watch the video, please stop pausing. Well, go watch that first and then come back. And if you did do that, welcome back. So, yes, and I will also have a link to their channel in the description as well, and hopefully I'll remember the pinned comment. But I have been talking for X amount of time now, so I need to shut up. We're gonna jump into this, and hopefully I will have time to go into that store over there after this. So, with all that said, 3, 2, 1, and play.
I really like the Archie Sonic comics. I think I've made that abundantly clear. However, due to a certain reputation the comics have, thanks Ken, I've been asked a good couple times.
Pausing already. Okay, so I already seen the first few seconds of it and all that stuff. And I wanted to pause right there because I do know the name of Ken Penders. Can't remember the last name, but I think it's Penders. I do know that name. And there's a lot of people that don't like him. I really need to do like a Ken Penders lore for Sonic. And I think, if I didn't mention this in the opening statements, I think this is number 7 for learning the lore of the Sonic series. But now we're on the Archie comics. So let's continue. And
what I think the worst story of the series is. I've seen some people say Sonic Live is the worst, and while Sonic Live is definitely one of the weirdest, hello Steve Penders, I don't think it's the worst thing to come out of the series, and I think it's pretty skippable. No, the story I'm thinking of sits at an intersection of bad writing, long-term story consequences, taking another writer's idea while also making it worse, and almost ruining a character completely.
Balls! Okay, so those are the 4 things that are going to be bad about the said story we're going to be getting into from the Sonic series from Archie. Bad writing, which of course that's going to happen if it's the worst story. But then we got number 2, which I find possibly the most interesting, long-term story consequences. Which means down the road, I don't know, 50 issues from now, something from this issue is going to have consequences later on. So, oh my gosh, which that, yeah, if it wasn't a good story, and its lasting consequences, that's horrible, because then people have to go back and check out that said bad story. Either way, though, number 3, wasted opportunity. I hate any time there's wasted opportunity for stories. I just absolutely hate that. And then number 4, almost ruining a character. That could mean anybody from Sally to Sonic to Knuckles to Tails to whoever. So let's continue. Play.
But we do need to get into some context first. March 1994, Archie Comics' Sonic the Hedgehog number 11 would hit shelves, this being the first time Ken Penders would write for the series and also serve as the introduction of Anti-Sonic, or Evil Sonic if you like, the character that would eventually metamorphosize into Scourge, the most popular character that we'll never see again. While tons of criticism has been levied at the early depictions of this character for not having a whole lot to him...
Balls. Okay, so Scourge. I'm presuming a Penders creation, and that's another reason why people don't like Penders. So, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out who Scourge is eventually and find out. Maybe I can get a video on the Archie Comics, Scourge story. I don't know. Either way, we're story. Let's continue this.
Keep in mind, this was still early in the franchise's life cycle, so Sonic having a non-robotic doppelganger was still a very novel concept. So what did Ken, or any other writer for that matter, do with the character? Not a whole lot, actually. While Evil Sonic does get to be the lead villain twice, once in his first appearance and again in issue 24, he's mostly relegated to being a henchman to other villains and getting taken out in a rather underwhelming fashion. Issue 19, working for Robo-Robotnik and gets taken down by Sonic very quickly. Issue 44, working for regular Robotnik and getting preemptively betrayed. Sonic Super Special number 10, all of the anti-freedom fighters walk out on him. He ends up working for Robo-Robotnik again and is quickly captured by a different Robotnik. Issue 112 gets punked out by Antoine within 2 panels of showing up. Not really the run you'd think of when you think about a character as iconic as Scourge. To borrow some wrestling terminology, creative had nothing for him and turned him into a jobber. But writers would eventually work to change that.
Balls. Okay, so I'm wondering if this worst story of Sonic has a lot to do with Scourge or the evil version or Anti-Sonic or whatever we're calling him. Because right now, we've talked a lot about this, the doppelganger, evil Sonic, or future Scourge, or whatever, but we haven't really delved into the story at hand. We're still dealing with context, and that's what he's given us right now. So far, I like this guy's video because he's actually telling us stuff. And this is a stark contrast to a video that I watched last night. Well, I watched half of it and then decided to stop recording because the video was trash. It was a Steven Universe video. It was trash. I shouldn't even mentioned it, but nonetheless, yeah, good context. Now we know that the story is probably going to have something to do with Scourge. And I've got some context for who Scourge is, so this is all good, storytelling for me. Considering I don't even know who Scourge was before this. I've heard the name, but I don't know none of how he came to be. And it seems that he came to be through this. So, alright, let's continue this and play. Oh, I messed that up, but you know what? That's okay. Because second chances always come for... I was going somewhere with what I was saying, but you know what? Never mind. Let's just play.
In case you're unfamiliar, let me introduce you to Carl Bollers. Bollers is often unfairly overlooked when Archie Sonic is being chronicled. He's not some minor figure in the comics' history. He wrote over 70 issues and was basically the comics' main writer from issue 62 to 134, and still made occasional contributions to the book after that, with his last story being printed in issue 154.
Balls. Okay, so instead of putting the screen that I see up here right now with that writer up here, I'm going to post up the picture of the issues that was posted up there on the screen when he was talking about it. And I know that one comic issue on the right hand side, if he's the one that was the main writer of that, he's definitely a major player in Sonic World, because I know that is an extremely important issue right there. So yeah, he's definitely someone who's a big name. So I'm definitely paying attention to this guy. So I know I'm only 2 minutes and 37 seconds into this. I'm sorry, I stop a lot. But that's commentary for you. I'm going to shut up. We're going to continue this. I'm going to try. You know what? I'm not going to say it because then I won't do it. Play.
And on top of that, if we were to count his artistic contributions to the book, he was on this book for nearly a decade. Bollers today has moved on from Sonic, but he did leave us some pretty detailed plans of what he would have done had he continued as the book's main writer. And that includes plans for Evil Sonic. While he clearly didn't have any use for the anti-freedom fighters overall, stating current status unknown, evil alternate reality versions of Sally, Tails, Rotor, Antoine, Bunny, and Jeffrey St. John, more of a joke than a threat, he does have some detailed notes when it comes to Sonic's doppelganger. Banished from the Anti-Mobius, currently resides in a prison cell in the No Zone under the watch of Sonic the Zone Cop. In an upcoming arc called Evil May Care, Evil escapes from prison after being denied parole and travels to Mobius Prime. Once there, he finds himself in battle with Sonic. Evil manages to get the jump on Sonic and imprisons him in a solitary area. He gets rid of his sunglasses and leather jacket, goes back to Knothole City, and decides to temporarily replace Sonic in order to avoid being recaptured by Sonic. While pretending to be Sonic, Evil causes havoc in Mina and Ash's love life, kisses Amy, and tries to put the moves on Fiona despite the fact that it hurts Tails. However, he finds that he deeply enjoys the way Jules and Bernie treat him. When a threat rears its head, Evil is forced to be the hero, and in doing so, finds that he enjoys the role. As a matter of fact, Evil enjoys it so much, he decides to take over for Sonic permanently.
Pause. Okay. So that definitely sounds like this guy had a lot of plans for Evil there. And it's not necessarily a one-to-one comparison, of course not, because Superior Spider-Man definitely is not a one-for-one comparison. But it is definitely comparable in the sense that, spoiler by the way, if you don't know who Superior Spider-Man is, when Peter Parker died, and, well, okay, Doc Ock, Peter, it's confusing if you don't know the story. I know the story, I'm just not 100% familiar with it, but pretty much Doc Ock died, but Doc Ock put his consciousness inside of Peter and essentially became, Peter Parker, Spider-Man and all that stuff. So in a sense, this is kind of the same thing, but Evil just takes his glasses off and just assumes the role of Sonic. And okay. Granted, I know none of this happened, because this is just the ideas he had for him, which I think it would have been a really good story arc, because when you tend to end up liking, you're the evil version, but then you're like, oh wait, doing good makes me happy. I don't want to be evil. Huh. Let's hold on a second. Okay, so sorry about that jump cut there, but I saw a car pull up in front of my truck, and there's only one space in front of me right now for anybody to pull into, and I didn't know who it was, but then I kind of looked out the windshield there, and it was the person who comes around this area that I park at, and they're feeding the cats around here. So there's a feral cat colony that lives in this area. Granted, they're probably not the ones that are going to get it. It's probably going to be my raccoon friends, because I got a few raccoons that like to hang out next to my truck over here whenever I'm at this location. So yeah, that's going to be nice to see them again. So yeah, Okay, nonetheless, though, back to Sonic. I know none of this stuff is, canon whatsoever. This is just kind of a little, context side plot that we're still getting into. So let's continue, and hopefully here soon we will actually get the worst story from Archie Comics. Let's continue and play.
And the only way to do that is by getting rid of Sonic. That concept definitely has a lot to it, and is definitely the type of story that can take a character from one-note villain to a fully fleshed out, possible anti-hero. Obviously, though, this arc as Bowler's planned didn't take place, as he would slow his output for the comic and hand the reins back to Ken. Thing is, though, in comics, when a writer leaves a book, they often share their plans with their replacement. It's good form, gives the new writer a starting point, and helps avoid plot points from being dropped completely, even if a writer decides to go a completely different way with it. I do believe that Bowlers did share his plans with Ken, because there are a lot of similarities between these plans and what Ken would go on to do with the comic. With all that out of the way, let's talk about Archie Sonic number 150.
Balls. Okay. So, I'm presuming this is going to be the worst Sonic story, in this guy's opinion, with Archie Comic Sonic. And that is issue 150. So, okay, that's kind of an anniversary issue as well. So, because normally with comic books, you got the first issue, and then pretty much at 50, that's considered a bit of an anniversary issue. 25 sometimes is considered an anniversary issue. 75 can be considered, because it's, quarter way, it's like 25 would be quarter to 100. Halfway point 50, 75. And then 100 is definitely a big time. Like, hey, 100 issues. Yeah. And then this one's going to be issue 150, which is a big milestone as well. So, yeah, it's a big milestone issue, but considered one of the worst stories. Let's see what happens. And play.
Heads up, this section is going to have a content warning for a mention of sexual assault. Timestamps for when this occurs are on screen if you wish to avoid this content.
Balls. Okay. I did not expect content warning for an SA mention in between those timestamps, so hopefully I will remember to let y'all know ahead of time, but if y'all know, then y'all already know. So yeah, hope I'll keep the minute mark 6:04 in mind, so I'll keep that in mind. And play.
The opening story of this issue, Hero to Zero in No Time at All, is a light adaptation of Bowler's plans for Evil Sonic. A lot of things are preserved. Evil Sonic gets the jump on Sonic and swaps places with him, though now, instead of trapping him in a secluded area, he sends him back to Anti-Mobius in his place. It opens on him playing the hero, though he more just seems to like the added benefits of hero work. He hits on Mina despite the fact that she's with Ash, causing her to run away from him when she realizes it wouldn't be right to hurt her boyfriend like that, which Evil Sonic immediately rebounds from by hitting on Amy. This is where a lot of the similarities stop. Tails does happen across him hooking up with someone, but instead of Fiona, it's with Bunny. Tails storms off when Evil tells him to scram, and while Bunny is concerned, Evil wants to get back to hooking up.
Balls. Yes. Okay. So right here, 6:04, he's about to give the content warning as well. And I see where we're going with it at the beginning of this, and this is some crazy stuff already. I don't know what to say. He's hitting on every girl that's around and then trying to hook up with this, I'm not familiar with the character of Bunny that much, but hitting on Bunny as well. And what I'm going to presume is going to happen is definitely not going to be good, because she's wanting to stop and he's wanting to keep going, and yeah, this is going to suck. But I'm possibly going to let it play out from 6:04 to the 7:23 mark, but I might pause in between But as he's giving the content warning, I think that's plenty of time for me to have that up there as well, as in giving y'all content warning as well. So, without further ado, I don't know a timestamp to tell y'all to go to, so hopefully I will have that down in the pinned comment below, as well as with links to the original video and the original creator to this. So hopefully I will have that. So let me continue and play.
This is where the content warning I mentioned comes in. Again, timestamps on screen. The comic jumps 2 hours later, with Bunny and Evil Sonic waking up under a tree together, with the implication that they've slept together. Now, being that Bunny thought this was actually Sonic and not his evil doppelganger, this is considered a form of sexual assault. And yes, while they do refer to what they did as a nap, because Ken is the way he did confirm they slept together. There is another portion of this that I unfortunately have to talk about. So Bunny and Antoine were kinda broken up at this time for reasons that are kinda not relevant to this overall video. But in his confirmation of what happened, Ken said, Antoine is too much of a romantic. He could forgive just about any transgression Bunny committed. Which implies that Bunny did something wrong. I don't...
Pause. Okay, so I agree 100% with what he's saying. Not that, Bunny did something wrong. No, she didn't. Wow. So Evil is now saying that he's Sonic, and then gets her to do, a little nap. Let's put that in quotation marks. And she believes it's Sonic, which I agree 100%. That is a form of SA. You think you're doing this with someone else, but you're really this person, which is not the person that I believe I'm doing this with. So that's all kinds of messed up. Dang, that's all kinds of messed up. I don't even know how to fathom being put in that position. And then we got Ken Penders over here saying that, what's his face, Bunny is willing to forgive anything as if she did something wrong. Granted, if it was with Sonic, if she did the little nap with Sonic, then there would be something to forgive. Granted, she believes she did do something with Sonic, so, oof. Am I almost talking myself into... No, who cares about that point? The whole point is Evil did something evil. He pretended to be someone else to get something from someone else in a manner of a nap. I'll just continue saying nap because that's what they said. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, let's continue. And blank.
I'd like to think that Ken doesn't think too hard about the things he says. I don't want to assign a moral compass to a person based off of the fiction that they've written or tweets that they typed out in 30 seconds. But God, Ken, this is a really bad one. What do you mean transgression? How would it be her fault? We're leaving the content warning.
Balls. Okay, still content warning is in effect over here, though, because we are still talking about what was just said. Unfortunately, I understand where Ken was coming from with the statement, but I don't think he knew what he was saying. Jeez. Here's the problem, is I've got to walk my fine line as well, saying I understand his statement. I understand what he was trying to convey. He was talking about Ash and how he's willing to forgive and this and that. But he wasn't necessarily talking about Bunny. Jeez. See, in my head, what I'm trying to say is making sense for me. I understand the statement he was making, but it just came across so flat and so victim blaming that it just, nobody's going to listen to you if you're saying something like that in that manner. That is just a ridiculous statement to say due to the circumstances involved. Yes, like I said earlier, if she did what she did and it was Sonic, if it was Sonic, then there would be something to forgive. But due to the circumstances now, there's nothing to forgive. Granted, there's a bridge to cross for the simple fact that if she did, if she was willing to do that with Sonic, then that's a whole nother bridge to cross later on. Deal with the fact that, Evil did do something with Bunny under false pretenses. You don't say stuff like that due to the circumstances. I get what he's trying to say, but it's stupid. All I can say is please understand that I'm not making excuses for his statement, but I understand what he's trying to convey when he says something as stupid as that. He's not conveying it. Dang it, now I feel like I gotta explain myself. I think y'all know what I mean. I think y'all understand that all I'm trying to say is I understand what he's saying. He's talking about the character of Ash, but he's not adding more context. Yeah, he's saying something stupid that don't need to be said. I'm done trying to explain myself because I don't mean nothing by it, because I'm adamantly against what happened. So either way, content warning, done with, because we are moving on from that. And
now,
that was pretty rough.
The comic continues with Evil going to see Sonic's parents, which you would assume might bring us back to Bowler's outline, but instead, Evil Sonic steps on a landmine. It's actually found it was a good thing that he set it off when he did, because it could have caused more damage later, but Sally still admonishes him for being reckless, stating that his, meaning Sonic's, assignment was just to mark the location of the bombs and wishing he'd play it safer. She's showing that she cares in her way, but I think this is lost on Evil. And then the entire plot is lost on Evil when he spots Rouge. Now, Rouge has had her own B-plot in this issue, where she's...
Pause. Oh my gosh. What is it with these characters trying to get with each other? My goodness. Because now Evil is looking over at Rouge like, which, yeah, but she's over here trying to get with Knuckles, so everybody's trying, does everybody try to get with everybody in the Sonic universe or something? What the frick is going on with Sonic and Archie? I'm presuming that this is like a one-off story beat, so I'm just gonna go with it, but the picture I've got it paused on right now doesn't feel like Knuckles to me, because it looks like a version of Knuckles with gray hair for his eyebrows, gray beard, gray right here underneath his mouth. I don't know. Let's continue. And
trying to seduce Knuckles' dad so she can
his
steal
dad?
the Chaos Emeralds from Angel Island.
Oh.
It's not too important besides the fact that these two have a reason to work together now. That is the note this part of the story ends on, though it continues in issue 151. Before we move on, though, I do have to bring up issue 150 is the same issue Titan Tales happens in. I don't want to talk about that right now, but if issue 150 wasn't already the most insane issue of this comic, it is now. Issue 151 has far less objectionable things in it, and in isolation is fine. Sonic finds himself on Anti-Mobius, being accosted by the anti-freedom fighters who think he's evil Sonic, and they just hate him so much. I can't blame them. I think I do have to tag on is that evil Sonic has apparently cheated on both Anti-Sally and Anti-Bunny, along with probably more.
Pause. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to figure out where to go from here on this one, because holy crap. Yeah, what I'm reading right now is, but Penelope with that beak? coming from Anti-Bunny. Okay, so... yeah, holy crap. This is throwing me for such a freaking loop with all the people trying to sleep with each other. But, the thought that was in my head was the fact that the group of folks, because now I've forgot the name of them, I had it in my head up until he started talking about how Evil Sonic started, who's cheated on everybody in this universe. I had it in my head, but y'all know who I'm talking about. The group of characters that are like a group of heroes. So, I'll have it in my head later on, but I feel like that group is like Sonic's version of TMNT's Mutanimals, because we got the Mutanimals in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they're pretty much their own little side group of characters as well, who are also heroes, and are kind of like side characters that nobody really, pays much attention to. And I feel like this group here is just Sonic's version of that. So, yeah. That's what I was going to say, but then he mentioned how the evil Sonic cheated on all the anti-people here with each other, and oh my gosh. Let's continue. And boy,
what is wrong with him? Why did Ken make him this? Rouge flirts with Locke, while evil Sonic slips by to steal the emeralds, only for our Sonic to make it back in time, causing the two to begin fighting. Evil Sonic tries to kill Sonic with a rock. Sayonara, simp! But Locke intervenes and rescues Sonic, and Evil proves himself just useful enough to be kept around by Rouge. And the dialogue implies they might sleep together. I'm so tired. When Sonic returns to Knothole, he finds all the consequences of Evil Sonic's actions, but has no knowledge of what happened. So, why? What I mean is, what are this story's intentions narratively? Like I said, this story has lasting consequences for the book, and the cover of the next issue makes it abundantly clear what they are. It was all primarily to make Sonic's love life more complicated. Sally's pissed at Sonic. Sonic still doesn't...
Balls. Okay, I'm sorry for laughing, but... Sonic's just like, look... He's like, I don't know why y'all mad at me. Calm down. Oh my gosh, this is some crazy stuff. Okay, so Sonic, holy crap. Sonic, okay, Bunny thinks that she did what she did with Sonic, but Sonic is now back, and now is there tension between them two because she thought that it was them two, napping together, or... I mean, does Sally know all that's been happening? Does Rouge know everything? Because everyone seems to know everything except for Sonic. And Sonic's just like, what the heck is going on? Somebody tell me, why are you all mad at me? I just, holy crap. This was a crazy 3 issues. Or at least I'm presuming it's going to only be 3 issues, because... it started with issue 150, then we went to 151, now we're at 152. So, let's try to continue with minimal pausing. And...
know what happened. And when it's time to go on a mission, Sonic ends up being paired with everyone Evil Sonic tried to get with. And Fiona. But later books say that happened anyway, just off-panel. Sonic also thinks this might be some kind of revenge that Sally's taking on him, so Sally might know about everything Evil did and is choosing to be petty rather than confronting Sonic or tell anyone. Mina calls Sonic a chauvinist pig, Amy is consumed with doubt as to why Sonic hasn't asked her out after their kiss, and after Sonic rescues Bunny, they make out, which doesn't matter anyway. She gets back together with Antoine 4 issues after this. Adding this on while editing, Sonic does claim that him and Bunny were just together to make Antoine jealous, which is bad, but Fiona clearly doesn't believe that. And also, no one was here for this, so I don't really believe it either.
Balls. Hold on a second. So Sonic is just... I'm even more confused by Sonic. I thought it was Evil Sonic who was hitting on everybody, but it seems like all the girls are now hitting on regular Sonic. It's like, oh, Amy's like, hey, we kissed. What the frick, man? Why ain't you asking me out? And then Bunny's making out with him, and then And then Sally, I guess, knows a lot of stuff, according, well, at least Sonic thinks she knows a lot, but she just ain't telling him what's happening. And it's just so confusing. Well, it's not confusing. I know what's going on, but still, it's just like, what the heck? Okay, I'm going to try to continue because I don't want this to be an hour-long video like my last Adventure Time recording was. Let's continue and play.
Mina's relationship with Ash is reaffirmed even sooner than that, with Sonic giving up pursuing her completely. Amy gets nothing. Well, 20 issues later, after Ian Flynn had already taken over the book in a backup story, they do establish she knows it was Scourge in issue 150 now, meaning that out of all the potential relationships they set up in that story, they went with the one that they didn't bother showing on panel. Also, Sonic bouncing around a bunch of relationships in a really short time period is really weird, and is concerning in how it highlights similarities between him and Evil Sonic.
Pause. Okay, so that's what I was in my head. I was thinking that. It's like it highlights the similarities between him and Evil Sonic. I was thinking in my head, is there much difference here? Because they're both freaking seemingly just chasing women around. That's all they're doing. It seems like that's all that happens in the Sonic books, with this story at least. With this story, that's all that's happening, is a bunch of people are trying to hit on each other and sleep with each other. It's like, stop that. And if you hear noise, I think I got a truck about to pass by, but I think they already did. Maybe they're out there on the road. I don't know. Let's continue watching Rouge hit on Knuckles' dad. Or at least I'm presuming it, but there's an editor note that he's probably about to get to. Again, Sonic 138 through 141. Let's continue and play.
On top of that, I think this storyline has a pretty big impact on Rouge's characterization pre-reboot. I think her having to be stuck at Scourge's side, even for the incredibly short time that she is, affects her long-term writing in that this needs to remain morally consistent for her. This doesn't absolve every writer of what happened with Rouge pre-reboot, it's just one of many contributing factors. Pre-reboot Rouge is a whole thing that probably needs its own video. This story is also where the seeds are planted for the Sonic and Tails aren't friends thing that the comic is kinda stuck working with as a background element until issue 178. Issue 155 is definitely where Sonic and Tails' friendship really falls apart, where Tails catches Fiona and Sonic hooking up in an almost identical way to how Bunny and Evil Sonic were. So I start to wonder why Fiona was dropped from the original version of the story when we ended up back here anyway. And why Ken bothered adding Bunny if he was just going to put her back together with Antoine. From a storytelling standpoint, it does make more sense for Sonic and Tails' friendship to fall apart due to the consequences of Sonic's own actions, rather than a misunderstanding. But it also makes Sonic look really bad, especially with all the times before when he was worried about how hard Tails was crushing on Fiona. I end up thinking about issue 150 probably once a year for one reason or another, usually because someone asks me what the worst issue is, and I'm just always upset about it. This is like the 5th time I've attempted to write a script about something in this storyline, especially because the stuff in the content warning is really hard to talk about in a constructive way. There were definitely ways to convey this story that weren't...
Pause. Okay. So, yeah, as far as the Tails crushing on old girl, I kind of think they should have kept with her being in those bushes with Evil Sonic as opposed to Bunny. Because that seems like something that could ruin the friendship quicker. So, but then, again, Evil Sonic would have been found out, and then it would have been like, oh no, it was this, and maybe I'm wrong with what I'm saying, so I'm just gonna shut up, and we're gonna continue this and see if I pause anymore or not pause or whatever, because I have a feeling I'm wrong in what I'm saying about keeping it being old girl that Tails was crushing on being in the bushes with Evil Sonic instead of Bunny. I don't know how it would have worked out better. It might have worked out better, but then again, there's, in all reality, they didn't need Ash, it sounds like, in the book, so I think it could have worked out better. I don't know. Let's continue and play.
To that. It's just so bad, and because it's so close to the end of Ken's run on the book that no matter how hard I try, I think it affects my entire perception of his contributions to Sonic. I try very hard to be fair to Ken. There are a lot of people whose entire thing is dunking on him, and I don't want to do that. I try not to be overly negative. Even with the Lara Sue Chronicles, I was positive about the print quality, and I was nostalgic for the old material regardless of how well I feel it was executed. But issue 150 sucks. In my eyes, there's nothing good about it. It's poorly written, it ruins an idea that I think had a lot of ways to be explored. Every consequence of it feels less like an exciting new direction the story could head in, and more like baggage it's stuck with, and the comic can't wait to get rid of it. Even when Ken's writing, making me wonder what the plan was to start with. And to be honest, it kind of makes it really hard for me to like Scourge. It's the Deathstroke effect, I think. I can look at this character who's such a good villain. They're iconic, I love to see them get adapted into things. And then someone brings up the Judas Contract, and suddenly I can't remember why I ever liked them.
Pause. Okay, so as far as the Deathstroke thing, I get it. Judas Contract. The storyline had Deathstroke being much older man in a relationship with, I believe she was 16. So, yeah. I see his point there, definitely. Holy crap. That does give you a bad taste in your mouth for Deathstroke and who his character started out as. So, I do want to know more about Scourge, though. Because how did he become what he is now? Because what I'm seeing right now is, you know, he's got different glasses on. He's green skin instead of the blue skin. He's got this scratch right across him. Did he get, like, clawed by a werewolf or something? And I don't know. Either way, though, horrible issue. I fully agree with him. Issue 150 is possibly the worst. Although Sonic Live, they did mention that at the beginning. Maybe that could be another, you know, issue that we go over in a video format. I don't know. Either way, I better let this go ahead and play out and then do a closing statement and see y'all next time after that. Let's continue and play.
Like, a single story should not be able to ruin a character, but God, it can come close. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, this is a video that's been kicking around my brain for some time, and I finally was able to write a script that I feel expressed all my opinions properly on this issue. I have a couple other videos in the pipeline, including some character analysis and issue analysis, but let me know what y'all think in the comments below. I always love the feedback.
Okay, and as what he said, leave some comments down below. I do appreciate the feedback as well. I always love getting comments. But yeah, issue 150. I think I've seen that panel before on 150. I've seen the panel where he's laying in the bush. I never actually read the words or anything like that. He's laying in the bushes and Bunny's right there next to him. I've always thought it was Sonic when I see that panel. I've never thought of anybody differently. I just always thought of it as Sonic is in the bushes with somebody. I didn't even make any indication that they were doing anything, but holy crap. Evil Sonic came in, took over Sonic's life, made people believe that he was Sonic, then hit on every single freaking girl available, and then ended up, yeah, sleeping in false pretenses with one of them. I didn't know there was a bunch of sleeping around in the Sonic universe for Archie, but apparently everyone gets around in the Archie universe with each other, and I had no idea. Holy crap. Jeez, I don't know. And I don't know 100% why people dislike Ken Penders. Yeah, I still don't know 100% why. I know there's a ton of hate for him out there. I vaguely got an idea. I'm not 100% sure, but I got vague ideas. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But the character that he's presuming that got nearly ruined in his eyes was Scourge. And I'm not 100% familiar with Scourge. This is the first time I'm even knowing anything about him. So, yeah, holy crap. That definitely puts a bad taste in my mouth for Evil Sonics, aka, Scourge. I don't know really what else to say about that. That was a crazy issue. And honestly, I now need to go out and buy that issue. Issue 150, Archie Comics. Yeah. I need to buy, well, okay, let me explain myself. In my opinion, that's controversial. It's probably not just my opinion. That's a lot of people's opinion. But that is definitely a controversial topic that was in there. So, I've got a collection of comic books at the house. I think it's like 15 issues that I've got so far. Controversial comic book issues. It's just one of the kind of categories I collect. And this is a controversial topic. So, now I want that issue. So, now that I know that that's what's in it, it's probably going to end up getting in the collection eventually. So, how much it's going to cost me? I have no idea, but I do know one thing though. This is the time of the year where it gets really warm inside the truck if I sit for too long. So here very, very, very soon, we're going to be recording in the back of this truck with the truck running. So if you made it this far, you're getting a little bit of insight on why the audio is going to be changing here soon, because when I start recording with the truck running, I've then got to take the audio and then take the background noise and remove all that and keep just my voice with a little, makeshift mic setup and all that stuff. And I'm not, because, I've said last year whenever it started to get warm, I was like, you know what, we're going to experiment, and it worked out pretty well. So we're going to start doing that again here soon, because it is the beginning of April, which means when I stopped this truck, it was 80 degrees outside, which it's probably about 75, 80 degrees inside this truck now, and I can feel me kind of starting to get a little warm, and I don't like that. So I'm going to record comfortably. So yeah, if it's like 75 degrees outside though, it stays comfortable in here. But once it starts getting up there, yeah, it's a no-go. Let's plug the mic in. Let's get some, editing out the background noise, all that good stuff. For right now, though, I don't have to edit. No background noise out. So, either way, though, I need to shut up. That is for darn sure. Pass it off to y'all. Leave your comments down below. Hit that like, tickle to subscribe if you're new. Don't be texting and driving. Watch what you love and love what you watch. And take it away, Mr. Rogers.